And we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks everybody for coming to our presentation today on OverDrive and Libby, which is a really cool resource offered through your public library to get you ebooks and audiobooks to your mobile device, your computer, all without having to come to the library at all. So it's perfect for times like right now when we're in a pandemic and you are probably staying home a little more. Just a note about me. My name is Anne Flanoy. I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Keller Library. I've been at the library for about 5 years now, so if you're ever in the library, we've probably encountered each other before. So what is OverDrive? OverDrive, like I said, is a platform the library uses to provide access to ebooks and audiobooks to its library users. We also use the term OverDrive to describe the web interface for OverDrive. So that's when we say OverDrive, a lot of times we're talking about the website specifically, OverDrive. Who can use OverDrive? So OverDrive is widely adopted by public libraries around the country. The Keller Library in particular belongs to a consortium of libraries, which is a group of sharing libraries called North Texas Libraries on the Go. It includes all of the libraries you see on your screen right now. So if you have a card at any of these libraries, you're a member of the North Texas Libraries on the Go library, and you all have access to Libby and OverDrive. If you have a card at another library, I suggest you talk to your home library and see if they have access to Libby and OverDrive. The Fort Worth Library in particular, I know we have a lot of Fort Worth patrons who use our library. They do have an OverDrive library, but they're not a part of our North Texas Libraries on the Go consortium, so they have their own separate library. So you do have access to Libby and OverDrive if you're a Fort Worth patron. It's just you're going to get there a little bit differently. So what can you do with OverDrive? You can check out ebooks and audiobooks, like I said. You get up to 3 items checked out at a time. Your items will automatically return on your due date, or if you'd like to return them sooner, you can do that manually. You can place up to 3 items on hold at any time. You can renew items if nobody has requested them. And if your item returns early before you finished it, and you want to check it out again to finish it, a really cool thing that OverDrive does is it remembers your place between checkouts. It remembers bookmarks that you added. It's going to track all of that between checkouts. You also have the option to use the wish list, and you can add up to 5,000 titles to the wish list to help you just keep track of titles maybe you want to read. Oh, and just a note here that these limits are set individually by each library. So these limits are specific to Keller Library card holders. If your card is held at a different library, these limits will be different, possibly. So to get to OverDrive, you're going to start at the library's homepage, www.cityofkeller.com/library. And up in the top right, there's just a portion of that page. You'll see there's a tile there for digital resources, and you click on that, and it takes you to our digital resources page, which you see on the bottom left. And the top link there, ebooks/audiobooks, that's the link directly into OverDrive. So let's try it out. So this is what you see when you go to OverDrive on a computer or through a web browser. A couple of things I want to point out right off the bat. You'll see this North Texas Libraries on the Go banner at the top. This is what tells you you're in the right place. If you see another library's banner here, like the Fort Worth Library or just any random library, you probably got into this site through a Google search or another library's homepage. So just make sure that the top of the page is the library that you want to be at. Otherwise, you're not going to get very far. Another thing to notice is this note here about signing in to see the full collection. This is absolutely true. The way our consortium works is we purchase ebooks on 2 separate levels. We buy books for the consortium that everybody in the consortium can use, and we buy books that only Keller Library patrons can use. So if you don't log in, you're only going to see the consortium items. So if we log in with our library card, we can see everything that we have access to, both those consortium titles and the Keller titles. So to log in, you're just going to click on either of these sign-in buttons here. The first thing you want to do is choose your home library. So we're going to choose the Keller Library, obviously. And then we're going to enter in our library card number. And this number is literally the card number on the back of your library card. Your library card includes spaces, but we don't want to include the spaces when we're typing it in here. And then just click sign in. Now at this point, it would tell you if you had some blocks on your accounts. And blocks can be things like your card is expired, you owe too much money in fines, something like that. So if you encounter a block, just give your library a call and we should be able to maybe either resolve that over the phone or to tell you how you can resolve that problem. But hopefully it'll just log you in like we did here and you'll see we're now signed in. So the first thing I want to do once I'm signed in for the very first time is look at some of the account settings. So right here on my account, I'm just going to click on this and go to settings. So you can see here in the general settings, we have some options on our lending periods. This is just going to be the default. Every time you check out an item, you have the ability to change your lending period between these options. But this is just going to set the default. So if you want to use one more often than the other, just set it to the one that you want to use at. You also have the option to track your history. If you turn this off, it's not going to remember items that you checked out. But this way you can track things that you've read. Maybe you have trouble keeping track of things, or it's just helpful if you read a lot by the same author. I'm going to go ahead and leave that checked. In audiences, this is helpful if you're maybe setting up an account for your child or your teen, or if you maybe don't want to see some of that more mature content that some patrons might find offensive. You can limit your age range and audience range here using this function. Kindle preference, if you are going to be reading only exclusively on a Kindle device, check this box. Do not check this box if you're ever going to read on your phone, on your computer, on an iPad, any other device. Don't check that box. And then you have some options here for your display for those of you who might need a more accessible site. That's pretty much all we're going to deal with the settings today. So now we're going to get started looking at kind of the meat of the website. So if we'll just click on the banner, the North Texas Libraries on the Go banner, it'll take us back to our homepage. So of course you can just browse through the homepage just by scrolling like this. But I do want to point out you can also switch between home screens for different age groups as well. So if we click on this kids button here, it's going to take us to an all new homepage that's going to feature only content for children. And the same thing, if we go to the teens, it's a new homepage with teen content. So that's pretty handy if you are, again, setting up an account for a child. On this home screen, you can see a lot of good information, but let's start here. There's on every item, you see this banner that says available. That means that this title is available instantly right now. You can check it out and start reading it right away. If instead it had a banner that said wait list, that means that all of our copies of that item are currently checked out and you'll need to get in line to wait your turn for that item. I think everything that's going to be on the home page is available, but we'll encounter that later. Another interesting bit of information is that it shows you what format we're looking at. So you can see how it has this icon and then audiobook, or a book icon and an ebook. This one is an audiobook and this one is an ebook. So it's just a really fast way for you to see what the format is. You also have the ability to just borrow it straight from this page if you click on this borrow link. These fun icons add it to your wish list. So if you're just browsing and you want to collect books that you want to read, you can just very quickly add things to your wish list that way. You also have the ability to browse by subject. So up here at the top in the subjects category, we can see all of the subjects that are covered. See, first we've got all the fiction subjects and the nonfiction. Then it's going to break it out by age group: children fiction, children nonfiction, teen fiction, and teen nonfiction. And these numbers that you see before each word, that's the number of items in that category. So let's open, say, science fiction. So you can see here there's 717 results in this subject. That's kind of a lot to be browsing through. So let's say we want to narrow it down a little bit. On the left over here, we have the option to apply some filters. which are real handy. So say you want to start reading something right away, like you need a book right now. Let's limit it to items that are available now. You can see it's only going to show us things that are available. We can also do all sorts of other stuff over here, like limit it if we know we want an audiobook. And look, we're down to 87 results. That's much more manageable to browse through. We also have the ability to change our view to toggle between this tile view and a list view, which gives you a little bit more information. And of course, you can change the sort order too, to help you change what order it displays things in. So that's browsing by subject. You can also browse by collection, which is going to look a lot like when I forgot to mention on our home screen, these kind of lists that you see here, these are collections. So on the home screen, these are going to be ones that are curated by our librarians. A lot of times they're seasonal or topical or just popularity related. But when you're doing collections, it's going to be the same kind of idea. So you can see here, a lot of them are similar. If you open it up, you'll see it looks exactly like when we were browsing by subject. You have the same filter options, view options, and sorting options there as well. But let's say you don't want to browse and you know a specific book you want to look for. Using the search feature, you can type in any author. You can see it's going to offer you suggested results, suggested search terms. So if you maybe don't know how to spell an author's name, it'll help you out there a little. You can also type in topics, titles. You can get results. You can type in pretty much anything in the search term and it's going to throw back some results at you. But let's say this book right here, Little Women, is the one that we want. It's available. That's great. Let's borrow it. So I'm going to click on borrow. You can see here, like I mentioned before, you have the ability to change your lending period if you wanted to do that here. But it's always going to default to the one that you set as your default in your settings. And then just click borrow. And now we have checked out this book. You can see it says success. You've checked out. It tells you your due date here, October the 24th. And it gives you a little note about your loan limits. I have 2 more titles that I can borrow on my account. So you have the option to download this book. An EPUB book gives you the ability to read it offline without being connected to the internet. Or you can just click read now in browser. So this is what a reading view of an ebook looks like. So you can turn the page like this. You can add bookmarks by just clicking on this bookmark guide up here at the top. You can change your view. If you don't like this 2-column or 2-page view, we can switch and just read 1 page at a time. We can search for terms. And then we can navigate in our search results by just clicking on them, and it'll take us to that term. These 3 lines here is a menu. We can click on that. And again, you have the search option here. You have a chapter list that is navigatable. You can click on those to get to those links as well. Bookmarks will take you to a list of every page that you bookmarked. And again, you can click on those to get to that page. And then in reading settings, you have the ability to adjust what your page looks like. So you can change the size of the font, the color, and then the font, all sorts of good stuff to make it more readable for you. So this is why a lot of times we'll recommend ebooks to patrons who like large print books, but they have trouble getting the titles that they want. Ebooks are really handy because you can make that text real big. Okay, so you can see this book opened up in a new tab of my browser. So when we're done reading this book and we want to go back to OverDrive, we can just close this tab. But I do want to show you something really cool is if I open it back up again, it's going to remember that place. So the location that you are when you close the tab, it saves that information for you. So the next time you open it up, it's going to save it in that same spot. So you can never lose your place. That's what I love about ebooks is, in particular, is I read right before I go to bed. and I'll read until I fall asleep. And then it won't lose my place if I fall asleep and the book falls over like a real book. Okay, so that is how you check out a book. Let's talk about placing something on hold. So let's say you want something that's real popular. This Where the Crawdads Sing has been really popular lately. And as you can see, it's got a wait list on it. But we want to read it, and so we want to get in line for when it's going to be available. So you have the ability here, click on the bottom where it says place a hold. You can also click on the title itself, and it gives you just a little bit more information this way. So you can see here, it says there's 19 copies in the collection, and none of them are available. They're all checked out. If we click on this question mark, it gives us just a little bit more information about our wait time. So you can see there's 2 people waiting in total. So if we get in line, we're going to be number 3 in line on 19 copies. So we just need 3 copies to be returned before it's our turn. That's not going to be that long of a wait. So let's go ahead and place the hold. Just click place a hold. Now, the very first time you place something on hold, you're going to see this window. It's going to ask you what your email address is, because it's going to email you when it's your turn in line. So a lot of you will have an email address set up with your library card through the library. That email is not automatically going to import into OverDrive, so you'll need to enter it in here in order to get notifications. So we placed a hold. So you can see here it tells us our hold's position is number 3 on 19. And if we didn't want to wait, we wanted something we could read right now, it's going to give you some suggested titles here at the bottom. But from here, what I want to do is I want to take you to this, follow this link that says manage your holds. So we can look at what our holds shelf looks like. So in OverDrive, we refer to a lot your shelf. If you look, this little icon right here that looks like a little stack of books, this is your shelf. And if you go to it, you can see you've got a loan shelf, a hold shelf, wish list, rated titles, history. So we're on the hold shelf right now. So there's lots of good information here. You've got a note here that tells you how many holds you have left. Then you'll see an icon here for every item that you have on hold. And each one will show you here what day you placed the hold, what number you are in line. You have the option to edit your email address here. If you wanted to go to a different email address or you think you typed it in wrong, you can always check it there. You can completely remove this hold if you've already read it somewhere else or you changed your mind, you can just remove it there. Suspend hold is also something that's really cool. If it looks like it's about to be your turn on a book and maybe you're not quite ready for it, you could suspend your hold for a length of time so that it won't be your turn until you know you're ready for it. But it saves your place in line. So that's really cool. And that's your hold shelf. Let's look at the loan shelf real fast. You can see here, everything you have checked out, again, will show on this shelf. So we checked out Little Women, so you see it here. You've got this note here about your loan limits. You can see when this title in particular is due. We've got 14 days left on that one. Oh yeah, and we have the ability here to return this title if we're done reading it, or we're just done with this book in general. We can return it early. Now you might be asking yourself if it's going to return automatically at the end of your lending period, why return it early? And there's a couple of reasons. Like I said, you only can check out three items at a time. So if you want to check out another book, but you have 3 items checked out, you can open up a spot by returning an item early. Or if it's just a really popular book and you're done reading it, it could just be polite to go ahead and return it early so that it can move to the next person in line. So you just click return on this one and it's going to say, are you sure? Then you return title. And then as you can see, it comes off of your account. Another shelf you have is your wish list. Mentioned that briefly earlier. This is really cool. I use the wish list a lot to keep track of items that I want to read, and that way I don't have to search them every time. As you can see, you can add 5,000 items to your wish list, so you can keep track of a lot of titles this way. A really cool feature though is that you have the option to toggle between all items on your wish list and items that are available right this minute. So like I said, I use this to keep track of what I want to read. And then when I'm ready for a new book, I just come here, switch to available now. And then I know that anything I'm looking at right now, I could just borrow right away. So you can see you've got this link right here. You can just borrow it straight from your wish list. Or if you're you read this book already, we can remove it from the wish list. And then we have the ability to sort too. If you're having 5,000 items on a list, you need to be able to manipulate the order it goes in. So you can sort it by a couple of different options here. Let's see. Another shelf you have is your rated titles shelf. I haven't mentioned this yet. We didn't put any ratings on them, but let me go back here and I'll show you. When you're in a title view like this, you see these stars. You have the ability to rate a book. And that's on every title. You can assign it number of stars. And then if you go back to your rated titles, they're going to show up here. And again, you can change the way it sorts by rating, title, or date read. Your history, we mentioned it's not going to track your history unless you tell it to. So this is going to be anything that you have read will automatically be added to your history if you have that option selected. So you can see we checked out Little Women and returned it, so it's been added to our history. You also have this feature here where you can add rated tiles. So maybe you read something that wasn't in OverDrive, but you want to remember that you read it. You can click on that rated titles and it's going to add everything that we rated with the stars onto this list, even though we didn't read it or check it out in OverDrive. And let's say you have something in your history that you didn't actually read, like you checked it out and changed your mind, didn't read it, or it returned before you had a chance to get to it, or maybe you just have something in there that you don't want to remember that you read. You have the ability with these 3 dots to remove it from your history. And that wipes it out like you never had it there, ever. So that's pretty cool. And we already talked about the settings a little bit. They're pretty handy. If you ever notice something's acting weird, this is a good place to go and see. Maybe you have selected a weird setting. But that's pretty much the meat of OverDrive. We didn't really do a deep dive, but I know everybody who signed up for the webinar was pretty new, so I wanted to just start with the basics. But I do want to go back and we're going to talk about Libby now instead. We've covered OverDrive so far. So what exactly is Libby? Libby is the mobile app version of OverDrive. You use it to access the exact same content, the exact same library that you're using when you're using OverDrive. It's just you're using your phone or a tablet. So like I said, you use it on phones, tablets, iPods, pretty much anything that has the ability to download an app, you can get Libby for. Except Kindle Fire. So normally Kindle Fires, they do download apps, but there is not currently a Libby version for Kindle. And this is a little weird because OverDrive is a very Kindle friendly company, but you can't get Libby for OverDrive, for Kindle right now. But that doesn't mean you can't use your Kindle Fire for library books. All you have to do is access OverDrive through your Kindle's web browser, or you can use Libby on a second device and you'll just send the book to your Kindle. So just know if you're using a Kindle Fire, there's an extra step or two that you'll have to add into your book checkout process. Once you do it once or twice, it's real easy to get the hang of, but there might be an extra step. And you will have to sign in to Amazon to do that. What does Libby do? It does exactly the same stuff as OverDrive. So like I said, you're in the same content, the same library, you're just using a mobile app. So it does all of the same things. To access Libby, you'll need to download the app. If you're using an iPhone or iPad, visit the App Store. If you're on an Android device, it's on the Google Play Store. Just search for the app called Libby. It's called Libby by OverDrive, published by OverDrive Inc. Download, install, and open the app. So let's take a look at what Libby looks like. And if you'll bear with me a second, I'm going to switch devices, I'm going to show you Libby on an iPad. All right. Okay, so you should be able to see the home screen of my iPad right now. And if you look, the bottom right icon, that's the Libby app. We're going to open it up. The very first time you open Libby, it's going to say, welcome, do you have a library card? Because you can't use Libby without a library card. Some libraries have it set up where you can apply for a library card through the Libby app. That's not a function that the Keller Library has right now. So you need to get your library card first before you start using Libby. So do we have a library card? Yes. And I apologize, on the iPad, you won't be able to see my mouse or a cursor or anything to follow along. So I'm going to try really hard to describe what I'm touching, but hopefully you can follow. You have a couple of options here to find your library. You can search for it. You can try Guess My Library. I'm going to do the Guess My Library. Sometimes it does pretty good, and sometimes it's not very close. Ah, perfect. Okay, so it picked us. The North Texas Library is on the go. Like I mentioned, that is us. So we're going to say, this is my library. And it says, where do you use your library card? We use it at the Keller Public Library. And then it wants us to enter in the card number. So again, this number is the same number from your library card with no spaces. And then just click sign in. And it's here. So as you can see, we've got our linked card here. So it gives you this fake little card, and it shows you your loan amounts, your hold amounts. We have the ability here to rename the card. This is a really handy function if you are using more than one library card. Like me, for instance, I have library cards at Keller, and then I live in the city of Fort Worth, so I have a Fort Worth library card that I also use with Libby. So I have renamed my cards to say Keller card and Fort Worth card. So if you just rename it here, you can change it. This is also really handy if you have multiple people that you're setting up an account for. You can put in the name of the person. So you could have Anne's library card, Andy's library card, Kelly's library card, like that, and they'll all be on there. But you don't have to do that. So we'll just click next when we're done with that step. And then we're in Libby. So as you can see, it looks very similar to the OverDrive site. It works very much the same. One thing I want to point out is in the top right-hand corner, you can see this little girl icon with the 1 over it. That is going to be a handy function for you to get to your account. So if you tap on it here, you have some options there. And to close this, we're just going to click on hide. But the main ways that Libby functions is there's 2 sides to Libby. There's the library side and the shelf side. So down at the very bottom of your screen, you'll see the little shelf is bouncing because it's wanting us to go there. But you've got the library, and then you can toggle instead to the shelf. And then go back to the library by clicking on library again. So as you can see in the shelf, you have the same options here, loans, holds. One main difference between Libby and OverDrive is they use these tags. So in Libby, instead of building a wish list, you tag items and it will save it in these tagged lists. One thing that's not so great about using both of these is that wish lists that you build in OverDrive are not going to transfer over to Libby, and tag lists that you build in Libby are not going to transfer to OverDrive. So you won't be able to use lists between the 2 functions. So just keep that in mind if you're building lists. But if we go back to the library, you can see you have the same kind of options. We're scrolling through. These are the exact same collections that we saw on the OverDrive site. You can see above each title, there's a plus sign with kind of like an almost circle around it. That is Libby's way of telling you that that item is available right now. So you can click on that icon and it'll tell you you can borrow this right now. Or let me see if I can find one that's checked out. This on News of the World, here in the middle, you'll see instead of that plus sign, it has a calendar with some dots on it. That is indicating that this item has a holds list, and you can see instead of borrow, it has place a hold. But it works exactly the same. You can place a hold and it tells you about here how many people are waiting to give you an idea of how long your wait list is going to be. But for the most part, it's very similar to OverDrive. You have the same options. If we go up to the top here, we can explore. That's another word for browse. At the very, very top of the screen, you can see it has the search button. So we can click on that and type in a search button. And it gives you some helpful hints there as well, just like we saw on the website. You can do all of the main things. When you see a collection like this, oops, you can click on the title of the collection and it will take you so you can view all of the books in that collection. When you're in the home page, it's just going to show you, a few of the titles. So if we scroll down a little further and we want to look at this one, click on the title of that collection. And it takes you into it so you can view all of them. And so I just want to real quick show you a couple things in the settings. So we have the very first note at the top, it's talking about notifications. You have the ability with Libby to get push notifications on your device. So if you want, instead of getting an email, or in addition to getting an email when a hold is ready, you have the ability to get a notification in Libby. That might be faster for you. If you're in a hurry to get a book, you can set it up that way. So just say that you would like to get notifications from Libby. And then you can choose what items you want to be notified about. So there's all sorts of different ones there. You can also go here under your libraries, you see what library you're at. You can see your library cards. And then, of course, there's help and support there too, to get some help with. One thing I do want to point out, the read books with option is really handy. If you're using a Kindle device, choose this Kindle version. It'll save you a little bit of trouble. If you check that option, it's going to prioritize items when you're browsing that are Kindle compatible. There are a handful of items. I don't know if you noticed that Little Women book is not Kindle compatible. So you would have to read that one in the Libby app or on the OverDrive website. So it would hide items like that that you wouldn't be able to see in your Kindle. So like I said, only select that option if you're only going to use your Kindle ever. But that's pretty much Libby. It works really well. I like to use OverDrive to do my searching. I hate typing on a mobile device. So if I'm doing any kind of searching, I'll usually use OverDrive and I'll check it out through OverDrive and then I'll send it to my device to read on my device. I use a Kindle to read and then I'll use my phone to do the ebooks. So OverDrive is just a central location for me to kind of operate through, and then I can type with a keyboard instead of on the touch screen, which is nice. That's pretty much it for Libby. Again, we just did kind of the basics. We didn't do a deep dive. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can always email us at library@cityofkeller.com. Or you can call 817-743-4840, and one of our helpful librarians will be glad to walk you through it. Especially if you have a Kindle, it could be really helpful for us to walk you through it step by step. So you can always talk to a librarian about that. But thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming to listen to our presentation today.